everyone, welcome back to Faith and Flower. This is Robin. I'm back from our vacation, and as you can see, we had a wonderful time. I've got a lot of highlights to show you, but I'm going to start with some sort of packing tips. I don't know if they're really tips. I'm rather new to RVing. We've had our RV for about a year, but we like to use our dining room table to kind of gather things starting a week or so before our trip. So as we think of things, we put them in there, and that way we don't forget something. So before this trip, we bought these electronic sort of flares in case we had to stop on the side of the road. Thankfully, we didn't need to use them. We also bought some walkie-talkies because we knew we would be in some areas where we don't have cell coverage, and we did use those. And I put our small Nespresso coffee maker and our Instant Pot on the table because I like to use those when we're traveling. We also bought a big sort of plastic outdoor rug, which we used a ton on our trip. And I have a section in my Amazon store with all of the RV things that I can put in there, so you might want to check that out. And then I also gather a lot of snacks before we go. It's pretty easy to grocery shop when we're on the road, except for when it comes to gluten-free items. So I took probably way more than I needed. Peyton doesn't usually eat this many snacks and sweets and things like that, but I just wanted to make sure that I had lots of things that he could have on hand, and so I gather those things up too, put them in a shopping bag, and put them in the dining room so that they're ready to go when we're headed out the door as well. 2 weeks away from YouTube was a really nice break, but I missed you guys, and I really appreciate all of the messages that you sent me. It's really nice to be missed, and I'm really glad to be back. On our RV, we have a very small refrigerator and freezer, but there is enough room for things like frozen waffles. Again, I make sure I have some gluten-free ones. And then a few weeks before we leave on a trip, I try to sort of make double batches and freeze some, especially of the sort of protein items, so that I have meats and things that take a long time to prepare already ready. So I've got some meatballs. Of course, you have to have hot dogs. And there's also some cooked chicken and things like that. So I grab a bunch of those things and stock up the freezer on our RV, and then all I have to do is throw together an easy side salad or vegetable to go along with it. I also like to make sure that all of our houseplants are going to be well cared for while we're away. So I gather up a lot of them in the kitchen nook area because that's one of the sunnier areas, and I can leave this window unshaded so they get plenty of light. I also have some self-watering pots that you might want to check out in my Amazon store. And then all of my orchids already live on this windowsill. They get the perfect amount of light here. So I just make sure that I water them really well before we go, and they were fine when we got home. For our clothes, each family member gets a plastic bin like this that they can fill with the clothes that they want to take. I use mine for things like pants, pajamas, underwear, socks, hats, and then I usually take most of my shirts on hangers because we have a pretty good sized little closet in the Airstream, and with these thin hangers that have the flocking on them, everything stays in place and you can actually fit quite a lot in there. So most of my tops go on like this, and Patrick hangs quite a few of his as well. We also use a plastic bin to gather up all of our toiletries and things like that too. Using the bins is a real space saver because we don't take suitcases and extra bags that we then have to figure out how to store. All of those plastic bins stack within each other and take up very little room in the bed of our pickup truck. Planning a 2-week trip can be kind of exhausting, but once we were on our way, it was just fun from then on out. And we didn't plan ahead too far. We knew the places that we wanted to stop and see, and we just kind of flew by the seat of our pants. We didn't make a lot of reservations. We found that there was a lot of availability at RV parks in the areas where we wanted to be, so we just tried out new places. Our first sort of target destination was Santa Fe, New Mexico, but that's a long drive from Austin, Texas. So we decided to take the trip slow and break it up, drive about 3.5 to 4 hours per day, and then find an RV site along the way. And we found some cute ones, and we met some other people who were traveling, and it was really nice to break up the trip like that. Everyone enjoyed a little bit of R&R in between, including Austin. Santa Fe was absolutely beautiful, and we couldn't wait to get out and hike some of the mountain trails that are right outside the city. There is some beautiful native plant life to see, as well as amazing views from some of these trails. The short ride down from the mountain into the city was really gorgeous. We got to see all of the adobe homes that are common to the area, along with the native plants that are incorporated into the residential landscaping. It's really a beautiful, beautiful area. After lunch in the RV, we went to the downtown area and spent the rest of the day exploring. Next on our trip would be Durango, Colorado. The drive between Santa Fe and Durango was really beautiful. We enjoyed looking out at the change in topography as we got closer and closer to the Colorado mountains. It was just such a delight, and this was a big highlight of our trip as well. We really did enjoy our drive days. One of the big advantages of traveling with our home, basically, our RV, is that we can find a spot to pull over on the side of the road when someone needs to use the bathroom or if we want to have a meal, and so we often stop for lunches. On this day, Patrick discovered a field full of prairie dogs right next to where we pulled over. They were adorable. They made the cutest chirping noise, but they are very skittish and very camera shy. First thing we did when we got to Durango was set up the RV and then head to the downtown area. My guys love trains, and I do too, truth be told. So we headed to the train station, we checked out the trains, which I'll show you in a little bit, and we walked around town, which was adorable. There are so many cute shops and restaurants to explore, and in almost every direction that you look, you see the beautiful mountains in the background. It would have been a real treat to actually ride the train, but it was almost as fun just observing. We'll have to save that for another trip because the only animals allowed aboard are service animals, and so Austin wasn't included. The train has been in continuous operation, running excursions on a 45-mile spur of the Denver and Rio Grande rail line since 1882. Much of the scenery remains unchanged since then, so this is definitely something that we're going to want to add to our bucket list. Even though we couldn't take the train, we still spent the next day driving from Durango to Silverton, experiencing all of the beautiful scenery and exploring this historical mining town. Silverton sits 9,318 feet above sea level. It was once a silver mining boom town, but now it's a National Historic Landmark District. After Silverton, we decided to keep heading up the mountain towards Ouray, which is known as the Switzerland of America, so we couldn't bypass that. But in order to get there, you have to take a stretch of 550 that is known as the $1 Million Highway. The road was originally created in 1883 and operated as a toll road until the 1920s when it was rebuilt. Historians aren't certain why the highway has this name. One explanation is that it probably cost $1 million to make this highway, and it certainly looks like it would have been quite expensive. And the other explanation is that an early traveler was so overcome by vertigo on the steep and winding stretch of road that he insisted he would never travel it again, even if he was paid $1 million. This journey definitely takes you winding and weaving through the mountains, clinging to tight curves with breathtaking views. It's not for the faint of heart, but it was well worth it. And Ouray was amazing, so we're very glad that we decided to make the trek. And for those of you who are wondering, we left the Airstream at our camp in Durango and went with just the truck. But afterwards we realized it would be doable with an RV, and lots of people have done it. In fact, we saw a really nice RV resort up in Ouray, and that's definitely going to be on the list of future things to do. $1 Million Highway was absolutely worth exploring, and so was Ouray. It did remind us of Switzerland, nestled in the tall mountains, and it's a place that I definitely want to visit again someday and spend a little more time exploring. If we do have the opportunity to return, I'd love to stay at the RV resort here in Ouray and hike the perimeter trail. I know that today's video was a little different than my typical video, but I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. In my next video on Sunday, I am going to show you the remainder of our trip and also give you a little glimpse into homemaking on the road. Several of you have requested videos like that, so I hope that you're going to enjoy it. And after that, I'll be back with my more typical videos. Don't leave without subscribing. We'd love to have you join our Faith and Flower community. Thank you for spending your time with me here today. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, have a wonderful week.